Hello, folks. We are going to look at a bootcamp synthesis essay on a factors-based prompt about what a city agency should consider as most important factors if they're going to incorporate the food truck industry. And I specifically have one I want to look at here because some of you are really wanting to implement ways to earn that sophistication point. So I'm going to pull up the rubric, the scorer's rubric for the synthesis essay. You'll see right here I've got all three of the rubrics. And this is for the thesis. Just a little heads up on the thesis. It's a binary point. You guys know that. You're either going to get it or you're not. And over here, it's pretty simplistic. It says it responds to the prompt with a thesis that has a defensible position. Defensible means you craft an argument. It's a debatable. There are people who may not agree with you. It's not a fact. It's not straddling the fence. You actually take a stance. And down here in the light blue, it says responses that earn the thesis point respond to the prompt. So if the prompt says factors-based or consideration-based, you have to give those two. If it says take a position or a stance, then you are at liberty to, again, not straddle the fence, but to take a stance on whatever topic and problem that is presented. Notice it says responds to the prompt rather than restate or rephrase the prompt, and it clearly takes a position rather than just stating that there are pros and cons. That's what I mean by straddling the fence. And then row B, that's where you have your 4 points. Take a look at the one cell, the 1 point cell. It says provides evidence from or references at least two of the provided sources. If you don't reference at least three accurately, you're going to be in this one, which is going to devastate a score. So we need you at least to your baseline opportunity to be over here in the 2, but it says at least 3 of the provided sources. So please make sure you have at least 3 used correctly. That's one of the reasons I push you to 4. But then for you to be in the 3 and 4 range, you need evidence from at least 3 of the provided sources, from at least 3 to support all claims, which means you need at least 2. 2 is plural. Over here, it's the same thing, to support all claims. The difference between a 3 and a 4 is your commentary. It explains the importance of either that claim to the argument of your stance, or it explains the importance of that factor if it's a synthesis essay. But the purpose of this video is primarily for those of you wanting to earn that sophistication point. Now, do not set your sights on the sophistication above the thesis or above at least a 3 in row B. If you know that you're confident in getting row A and row B as far as quality scores, then you can come look at row C. Row C, the 1 point says it demonstrates sophistication of thought and or a complex understanding of the rhetorical situation. And if you come down here to the scoring notes, it says responses that earn this point may demonstrate sophistication of thought and or, so it just repeats it. But it says by doing any of the following, this word right here, any, that means 1. You just have to have 1. Now, you can have flashes of all of them, but you need to have either a consistent dash throughout, dash meaning like a dash of pepper. So you need like a dash of sophistication in your opening, and then in your first body paragraph, and then in your second body paragraph, and then in your closing. It needs to be consistent because down here where it says additional notes, the point should be awarded if the sophistication or complexity is part of the student's argument, not merely a phrase or reference 1 or 2 places. It needs to be woven in throughout. So there's that. First of all, it can't just be one spot. Now, I have rewarded this year for an opening. And if all you have is a really strong image field, strong diction opening, I rewarded that. But an AP score is not going to reward you for the sophistication if that's the only place you have it. So now let's come back and look at the 4 ways, and you only have to have 1. The first one, crafting a nuanced argument by consistently identifying and exploring complexities or tensions. Tensions is the best word to think of here. Tension means if you have 2 or 3 people who disagree a little bit on the argument, and one says, but my stance is stronger and pulls a little bit, where are the limitations to that pull? Who's going to be pulling back, and why is yours still should be a stronger pull than theirs? This is where people understand the limitations to their stance and they're able to speak to that limitation but still argue why in a sophisticated way. So that's number one. Number two, articulating the implications or limitations of an argument by situating it within a broader context. So this broader context is if we're talking about food trucks and you argue that food trucks may change the dynamics of a small square in a town, you are going to situate it into perhaps it's a fishing community. And if we draw business away from the lakes because of these food trucks, what is that going to do to the fishing industry? So you have actually narrowed it. You've expanded it to a broader context. You've used fishing, which is a narrow, but an ideology of how food trucks would impact on a broader context. So 2 is kind of difficult. 1's much easier. 3, making effective rhetorical choices. Now, keep in mind, in a rhetorical analysis, you identify and analyze those rhetorical choices. Parallelism, a pattern of specific diction, juxtaposition, a metaphor, a purposeful fragment after a long building sentence. Now you're using those rhetorical choices. And if you can use those well in a timed environment, that's one way to get the sophistication point. This is hard, though, in a timed environment, folks. And then number 4, employing a style that is consistently vivid and persuasive. This is where instead of saying food, you say pupusas. Instead of saying people, you say consumers and police officers. This is where you give imagery and specific detail. So 4 requires very specific diction, typically image field, and very specific details, typically proper nouns. So keep that in mind. And again, you only have to have one of these, but there has to be throughout your essay. So you can have maybe number 1 and number 4 in areas, but it's consistently shown. So now I'm going to pop over to this kid's essay, and this is on the food trucks, and there are spots where I'm going to show you where sophistication occurs. First of all, I'm going to let you read that opening on your own right quick. So we have a specific lead. We have a high school that puts on a food truck, and the alliteration in monotony of mystery meat. Now, the student may or may not have been purposeful about that, but it did occur. That would be under number 3, rhetorical choice. So your AP reader is going to go, oh, that's nice. Let's see if it continues. We do have a clear thesis. Moving on. Regulators must consider the potential harms to existing sit-down restaurants, as food trucks could potentially decrease revenue for those restaurants, the community, and the government. So our factor here is the impact on a broader context. Sarah Meehan explains in the Baltimore Sun that many cities have restrictions on how close a food truck can park to an established restaurant, though the distances vary. The intent behind these types of regulations is to protect established restaurants so that their patrons, nice, specific diction, and their profits. Do you hear alliteration again here, patrons and profits? That again is number 3 on the sophistication. Are not drawn away by bright, flashy meals on wheels. So now we've got some rhyme, meals on wheels. Also, rhetorical choice. Meehan showcases good diction 2 perspectives, the food truck owners who characterize this limit as an unconstitutional restriction on their ability to compete, and the restaurant owners who feel that they provide more to the community in commitment and taxes. This is an excellent paraphrase of source D, and the delivery of this paraphrase. We've got a we've got 2 parallel details. So that is going to be a combination of either number 3 or number 4. It's vividly persuasive to an AP reader who's impressed with this command of punctuation and sentence structure. But it could also be a rhetorical choice because you're using punctuation purposely. This over here says good commentary. By nature, food trucks are mobile. While they would have to pay taxes on their income, they do not have to pay the property taxes sit-down restaurants are responsible for. So this is someone who understands the broader context and is speaking to it very insightfully. So this is number 2 on the sophistication rubric. If we pop back over here, limitations of an argument by situating it within a broader context. And so we are looking at the brick and mortar restaurants and really speaking insightfully to how they're going to be impacted. With a small food truck, the goal is to minimize space and costs, including wages, while maximize food output and profit. Since there is little to no seating and the food is usually served in disposable packaging, there is not a need for food service employees who are left without jobs. So here's someone who understands the broader context and the nuance. Food trucks don't have to worry about seating. They don't have to worry about cleanup. They don't have to worry about employees who, like 20 employees, they have maybe 2 that work their food truck. That is lost revenue for the community and for the government because those workers would have been paying an income tax. Someone who gets it. So right over here, I put excellent depth of argument understanding. So this is going to be either number 1 or number 2 on the 4 options of sophistication. Nesman's cartoon highlights another issue with food trucks, their need for distinct personality and service in the cartoon. And I think this is the only kid that used the cartoon. And I encourage you not to use the cartoon as one of your 3 sources, to use it as an additional, and that's what this person has done. But in the cartoon, 2 men in suits look at fancy food truck with seating on the roof and say that they need to change their regulations. This implies that because the food truck is offering full service dining with seating, it has become too similar to an established restaurant and should therefore be regulated. Food trucks are meant to be distinct from sit-down restaurants, and that may include a distinct location, ensured through location restriction. So we've got a participle phrase here, but this writer is saying, here's the broader context, and here's why we have to be careful about allowing food trucks at large. And then weave it in the cartoon, even if we had food trucks that wanted to be like brick and mortar restaurants, here's a problem we have. So this kid gets the limitations. This reduces competition and highlights unique aspects of a quick but tasty mobile meal. Moving on, though the mobile nature of food trucks may provide less tax revenue, the industry brings the intangible benefits of a sense of culture and community. So remember, 2 factors. The first one was kind of iffy, like, got to be careful about food trucks. But this one is pro food trucks, and that is okay because it's a factors-based prompt. The industry brings the intangible benefits of a sense of culture and community. In his food truck handbook, Weber showcases the positive impact of drawing people, quote, out onto the street by activating public space and fostering entrepreneurship. Good weaving in of a little bit of quotes at a time. Some of us tend to drop like a 20 plus, 25 plus quote because we don't know what to say about it. But when a writer like this has more commentary and weaves in bits of the quote, that is number 4. Writes in a vividly persuasive way. Food trucks are mobile and can travel anywhere, into neighborhoods, into food deserts to provide nutritious alternatives, or into offices to spruce up the lunch break. So over here, parallelism or parallel structure, that is going to be a rhetorical choice, number 3. Just as Bentonville High School brings in food trucks for its students, Walmart will also commission food trucks to come to its home offices, campus, or parking lots. When neighbors and coworkers are brought together over good food, bonds can form. Interacting with a food truck is often a more personal experience than a sit-down restaurant. The founder and owner is very invested, so they are often present, taking orders or cooking, actively interacting with customers. We have back-to-back participle phrases here, which is just another representation of writing with a vivid command of language here. At a sit-down restaurant, one may never meet the owner. They may remain in the kitchen, which is often distinct from the dining area, or they handle accounting tasks in their office. Baker's New York Times article offers creative solutions to balancing concerns from current businesses with the benefits of food trucks. She discusses the creation of a new space in Charleston dedicated to mobile food, conflating open seating and rotating food trucks. Now, this is a kid who wanted to use conflating accurately, but missed the boat because conflating is typically a negative connotative word, and I think that the student's trying to use it positively. But it's one issue. This allows food trucks to have a space to themselves where they are not displacing existing restaurants and where the community culture they are conducive to can thrive. Great diction. Here's the closing. In addition to taking advantage of the food trucks, when they come to my high school, my family and I will often go eat at Yayo's. Yayo's, I think it's Yayo's. It is a local Mexican food business with both a sit-down restaurant and a food truck. More often than not, we choose the food truck because it is fun, fast, and friendly. Do you see that alliteration there? At this point, I'm beginning to think that this was a very purposeful move, and it is consistently done. I don't think alliteration alone would qualify for one rhetorical choice, but that, along with the limitations of the broader context addressed, and then the command of sentence structure, all of that together definitely points to this kid has a level of sophistication, both on number 1 and 2, which is the argument, but also on 3 and 4, the way the student writes. We never know who we will get to chat with in the motley cluster of people surrounding the mobile kitchen. This type of community epitomizes great diction, the potential of food trucks. When considering how to regulate this global industry, cities should therefore take measures to promote existing businesses while focusing most heavily on allowing food trucks to thrive and their communities to thrive along with them. So I want to return to, if you know that you're going to get a 1 out of 0 on row A, which is your thesis, and you're confident in achieving the 3 out of 4 in row B, but you would like to stretch a little bit, the synthesis essay may be the way for you to do that. The synthesis of the argument. Rhetorical analysis is just tough. And here are the 4 ways again.